The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning here at 5 a.m. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher. All right, thanks so much, Kev. We begin this morning with your 17 Court Watch, an update on an animal cruelty case that sparked outrage across the community after video surfaced of a woman dragging a dog behind an electric scooter. Yesterday, we learned animal cruelty charges against that woman, Elaine Rosa, have been dropped. In October of last year, Rosa entered a pre-trial diversion program in which the criminal case against her was suspended and a number of conditions were set in order to have the case dismissed. Rosa sparked outrage when surveillance footage of her dragging a dog behind a bird scooter through downtown Bakersfield appeared on social media in January of 2019. The dog, Zebra, suffered no permanent injury.
Meantime, one of 2 men convicted of murdering a father and son during a gas station robbery back in 2016 is scheduled to be sentenced today. Darnell Hammond and Jim Langston were found guilty on 2 counts of murder in the robbery at Quality Gas Station in Lamont, where they killed owners Heriberto Aceves and his adult son, Juan. Hammond, who prosecutors say fired the deadly shots, was being considered for the death penalty. He was instead sentenced to life without parole earlier this month. Langston, meantime, is due in court later today at 8:30. He faces life without the possibility of parole.
The search continues this morning for a missing teenager who was last seen west of Bakersfield. Take a look at her picture. This is Layla Renee Romo. Last seen Monday morning around 8:30, waiting for the school bus on Highway 58 and Gatson Street near the Frito-Lay plant. Police say the 16-year-old, 4'11", weighing about 110 pounds with brown hair, brown eyes. She was wearing a black long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans, and black socks and white slide sandals. She also has piercings at the left side of her nose and belly button. If you know anything about Layla's whereabouts, you are urged to call the Sheriff's Office at 861-3110 or the Secret Witness line at 322-4040.
In education news this morning, dozens of upset parents gathered in front of Bakersfield City Hall yesterday to protest the state's vaccine mandate. The parents claim city leaders need to do their job and represent the opinions of constituents, even if it means going to jail.
You put yourself in a leadership position, you have to know that there's going to be consequences if you make a choice that other people don't like, and that's just the position of a leader.
It's just the latest in a series of demonstrations the group of parents and teachers have made over the last month. The vaccine mandate is a state requirement set forth by Governor Gavin Newsom for all children to be vaccinated to go to public, private, and charter school here in California. There is an opt-out option, but this could go away if the legislature is made to enforce the mandate too. During the protest, about 30 to 40 cars honked in support. The parents say they will continue to fight for their kids.
And now to the pandemic here in Kern County. Here's a look at the latest on local cases from over the weekend. 504 new cases have been confirmed over the past 3 days. No new deaths were reported. The number of hospitalizations is on a slow but steady decline, with 207 people hospitalized currently with the virus, 50 of them in the ICU. Local health officials are expecting a spike in hospitalizations come January.
Now to domestic violence in Kern County, and Bakersfield police yesterday responded to a domestic violence call ending in a man's arrest. It happened just after 10 a.m. on Texas Street in East Bakersfield near Highway 58 and Mount Vernon Avenue. Police say they arrested a man in his 30s but did not provide further details on the extent of the woman's wounds. And a reminder, if you experience domestic violence or know someone who has, there is help available. Always call 911 if it's an emergency. You can also call the Alliance Against Family Violence and Sexual Assault. Their number is 322-0931 and the crisis line 327-1091. You can also call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE. 44 is our time now, and a day after signing a $1 trillion bill to improve the nation's infrastructure, President Biden is hitting the road, visiting places where some of that money will be spent.
It's a chance for the president to explain what's in the new law while trying to build support for the next part of his agenda. NBC's Chris Pallone has more.
Alex, Maddie, good morning to you. President Biden will be in New Hampshire today and Michigan tomorrow, selling his administration's biggest accomplishment so far.
Everyone here in the United States, and good morning to you, Mr. President, in Beijing.
President Biden ending one of the most successful days of his presidency with foreign affairs, meeting virtually with China's president. A White House report after the 3.5-hour meeting says the president confronted President Xi on issues like human rights, Taiwan, and fair trade.
All countries have to play by the same rules of the road.
It happened just hours after President Biden's biggest domestic accomplishment. Signing into law a bill which will spend $1.2 trillion to improve the nation's roads, bridges, railways, and airports, and also replace dangerous lead pipes and expand broadband internet in rural areas.
My message to the American people is this: America's moving again, and your life is going to change for the better.
The president hoping to harness momentum from this bipartisan success to pass another larger bill, which would create new family supporting initiatives and programs to fight climate change.
The whole Build Back Better Act is about lowering costs for American families, about giving people more opportunity, about providing universal child care, pre-K, so much more.
Republicans warning that more spending now will make consumer prices skyrocket.
Now, miraculously, that exact same spending binge happens to be their prescription to fight inflation.
The White House betting people will get behind the president's agenda once they know how it affects them. Speaker Nancy Pelosi said she hopes to hold a House vote on the Build Back Better Act by the end of this week and vowed not to let lawmakers go home for Thanksgiving until it passes. In Washington, Chris Pallone, 17 News.
The Wyoming Republican Party will no longer recognize U.S. Representative Liz Cheney as a member of the GOP. Saturday's 31-29 vote by the state party Central Committee followed similar votes by GOP officials in several Wyoming counties. In February, the Wyoming GOP Central Committee voted to censure Cheney for her criticism of former President Donald Trump. Cheney is now facing at least 4 Republican opponents in the 2022 primary.
After more than 2 weeks of testimony, a jury is set to begin deliberations today in the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Rittenhouse is charged with 5 felonies after killing 2 people and wounding a third during a protest in Wisconsin last year. The teenager says he fired in self-defense, but the prosecutor argues Rittenhouse carried out the shootings because he was a wannabe soldier looking for trouble.
When the defendant provokes the incident, he loses the right to self-defense. You cannot claim self-defense against a danger you create.
Rittenhouse's attorney, meantime, insisted his client was not an active shooter, saying, quote, "Kyle was a 17-year-old kid out there trying to help this community." The jury panel of 18 will be randomly narrowed down to 12, who will then deliberate the case.
Turning now to your 17 homicide tracker with deputies investigating a deadly shooting from yesterday morning in Wasco. Deputies were called to 2nd Street in Wasco. This is a picture from the scene from KCSO. The victim died at the hospital. By our count, there have now been at least 124 killings in Kern County this year, making this the 2nd deadliest year on record, just behind 2020.
From our 17 follow-up file this morning, and new details in last week's deadly plane crash in eastern Kern County. It happened Friday afternoon around 2:15, about 20 miles south of Ridgecrest, just north of Garlock Road and west of Highway 395. Kern County Fire says 2 people were killed when the 2-seater plane went down. One of those victims was 68-year-old Hal Derwin Wood of Marietta. The other victim's identity has not been released. No word yet on what caused the plane to crash.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.